Welcome to Season 4 of the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we discuss business agility through customer experience, employee experience, and digital transformation. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom. The Agile World podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to TEKsystems.com. To read more about the topics discussed on this show, you can go to my website at gregkihlstrom.com and read my latest articles or get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, now available on Amazon and other retailers. My name is Greg Kihlstrom, and I'm the host of the Agile Brand podcast. I'm excited to introduce a special series about the power of decision intelligence. This series is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome TEKsystems Senior Practice Director, Ramesh Vishwanathan. Ramesh, why don't you first start by giving a little background on yourself and what you do at TEKsystems?
Sure, Greg. I would, start with thanking you for having me on this podcast. It's been, always good to be part of your show. Very quickly, at my end, I look at myself as a technologist. I enjoy helping solve business problems, piecing together the right technology for our customers. I've been with tech for 13 plus years. My current responsibility is to scale up TEKsystems Google Cloud Service offering, and data applications, is one of the core focus areas, given it's probably the leading ones for Google.
Great, great. Well, yeah, and as you mentioned, this is you're a returning guest, so welcome back as well. So yeah, let's get started here. So according to Forbes, the previous decade saw a growth of almost 5,000% in the amount of data created, captured, copied, and consumed in the world. Data analytics is a massive priority for every company today. Research firm Gartner predicts that by 2023, more than a third of large organizations will have analysts practicing decision intelligence. So, what exactly is decision intelligence?
So I'll take a stab at it from my perspective. There
Yeah.
could be multiple different definitions. We as human beings make thousands of decisions every day. One of the things that we don't realize is most of them happen on the back end, right? It's kind of a background process for us. It happens as a second nature. But irrespective of the kind of decisions we make, there's a common theme, which starts with identifying a problem statement, being able to collect the data around it, right? And that could include your environmental conditions and such. And then the act of getting this data together and munching it for arriving at, what would be the right decision to take, right? So irrespective the kind of decisions we make, the process doesn't change, and it remains the same. So from my perspective, I look at decision intelligence as an evolution of the process in decision making, from being something that has been more subjective and disconnected and discontinuous, to being something which is more objective, connected, and continuous. It's essentially putting a framework which could be more repetitive and which could be more time bound, the way we kind of make our decisions.
So, for the decision makers, especially those who are more on the leadership side, how should they approach decision making so it is data driven?
Oh, well, I would say, as a human being, right, consciously or subconsciously, we always use data to make our decisions. Where the key differentiating factor comes is, being conscious about how we make our decisions, and being able to make it more of a framework and formalize that into a process. So as a leader, I think the initial starting point is to acknowledge that in today's world the richness of data has kind of increased exponentially, and as humans, we are only capable of consuming so much. So I would say, as a leader, we need to kind of acknowledge, and start looking at the right kind of tools and being able to formalize our thought processes of decision making, and make it more, kind of repeatable, and kind of ensure that it is, you could reinforce your decisions using data. So kind of do that repeatedly, more iteratively, and follow those frameworks more consciously than trying to make that something on back end.
Yeah, and to add to that, what role do company leaders play in making sure not only is decision intelligence data driven, but also that it's successful?
Well. I think that has been always a problem, right? Right from
Right.
when we were on the business intelligence days, or from the days of reporting. uh, there are two aspects to it. One aspect, as a leader, is being able to enable our teams by providing the right kind of data set, right, and right kind of tools. And it has been happening, as we have seen. We have kind of evolved from reporting to business intelligence, to now we are in the world of data democratization and empowering people to have more data available. So now, providing the right tools is one aspect of it, and the second aspect of it is changing the mindset, right, the culture within the organization. And typically that comes with showcasing how you go about taking your own decisions. And that's where it's important to reinforce your decisions, whether before you take a decision, or you kind of try to analyze your decision afterwards and see how the data is impacting it. I think it's more about reinforcement of your decisions with data, which would kind of help drive more adaptability and the mindset and culture of using data to make decisions.
So where do you get started with this? Where does a company start? What are maybe can you talk about some of the first steps in the process of making this evolution?
The core of decision intelligence itself is pretty similar to what we have been doing for a long time now, right? Right from starting, to collect the right kind of data, to kind of building on top of it. So most of the organizations today, as they stand, they already have some kind of a data system in their organization put up, right, minimally kind of a BI system that they currently use. So I would certainly say that it's essentially building on top of what you have, instead of really looking at it as starting from the beginning, right? But having that thought process of essentially looking at establishing that process of decision making, right, starting with being able to define your problem statements. Because when you talk about decision intelligence, it's not about generically looking at your information. It's more about knowing a process that you want to kind of formalize, right? And identifying that problem is the step one, because you want to ensure that the decision intelligence that you're going to put in for a process is repetitive and happens frequently, to have some kind of an ROI on investing on that. The second aspect of it is being able to uh, kind of figure out what are the data points that you need for that particular process to be formalized into a decision intelligence model that could support your decision making. I would say the third piece of it is the feasibility itself, where many times organizations don't necessarily put enough stress on looking at the quality of data, looking at the completeness of data, to be able to model those decisions the right way. Last but not the least is, when the rubber meets the road, look at continuously monitoring how your decision intelligence system is performing, and being iteratively able to tune it, because the world is not static. So would be your decision systems, right, are going to be dynamic. So you want to make sure that you kind of iteratively tune it over a period of time, and keep it up to date with the environmental conditions around you.
As opposed to traditional business intelligence dashboards, how does decision intelligence differ? I know you kind of touched on some of this, but could you go into a little more specifics on really how traditional BI and decision intelligence are different?
So when you look at the BI, right, it's been, I would say, it's like a rear view mirror, right? It kind of gives you a view of your business in a more retrospective way. You could look at your key business influencers, or define metrics which could help you monitor the health of your system. Whereas when you look at a decision intelligence system, it's a little more forward looking. The goal of a decision intelligence system is to it still uses your historic data, but you are projecting that into the future to help you make decisions. Just to throw an example out there, just assume that you're working for a lending organization, and you are if you are looking at your BI dashboards, that would probably give you metrics around, let's say, on how many defaulters, right, how are you doing in your collections. So those could be some of the KPIs on your BI dashboard. But if somebody applies for an additional loan, your historic systems could probably just give you an input on how many defaults somebody did, right? But if you go to a loan officer and ask him how do you approve your loans, there are 20 more other parameters that a loan officer might be looking before they approve a loan. So how do you really use that data points and come up to a decision on whether I should be giving a loan? That's where the decision intelligence system comes into play, whereas the BIs would give you the metrics but not necessarily the projection of where it is going, and help you make those decisions for you.
So, from a decision intelligence perspective, why should we be excited about machine learning? What does that part bring to the table?
I think machine learning, by the name itself, typically I would say it's oversold many times, right? And people kind of use it in all different places for different reasons. But in this context of decision intelligence, right? So if we just go back a couple of decades, right? The challenge was more about non-availability of data than availability of data. If you look at the present situation, the availability of data has grown exponentially. And with that, the challenges have changed. Very first challenge when you talk about decision intelligence system and having this amount of data is identifying the relevance of what data is useful for you, right? Is it even worth using that data to make the right decisions? So I think machine learning has a huge capability of being able to correlate and kind of illustrate the effectiveness of what kind of a data is impacting what kind of outcomes. So machine learning certainly helps you unravel the key I would say key data points that you should be looking for when modeling your problem statement, right? That's the first aspect of it. The second aspect of it is being able to use those inputs and able to model your future. So that's the second aspect of it, where machine learning kind of is very handy in decision intelligence system, is being able to project into the future and give you the right kind of trends that you could then use to make more informed decisions, if you will.
Kind of to build on that, I mean, we hear a lot about AI and machine learning adding value to data analytics, but since we're here talking about decision intelligence, what's kind of the difference between the two?
Well, technically, I can, go, rambling about it for hours, but I'll take a simpler,
Yeah.
example and try to explain if it makes sense. In the way I kind of, like to think about it, I draw kind of parallels with the vehicle, right? Eventually the goal of a vehicle is to kind of transport objects and people from point A to point B. It's very similar with decision intelligence system. Essentially the goal is to make more informed decisions which could be more accurate, if you will. That's the goal, right? And the goal never changes. So now if you really look at the evolution of a vehicle, it was probably running on wheels and mechanically being pulled by human or animals, and it has evolved from there, being motorized today. So I feel it's very similar. If you look at decision intelligence, right, then decision making has always been there as a process. We have been consuming data, and trying to kind of make decisions, for eternity now. So AI and ML, I would say, are essentially the additional components that are helping make these decisions much more relevant. It's like motorizing your vehicle. It's essentially giving you the power of being able to project into the future, looking at the data that you have captured. It's more about modeling behaviors, and it's essentially another cogwheel, or a motor, which is kind of powering your decision intelligence systems. That's
Yeah.
what I would probably put it as.
Yeah. So, what are some common mistakes that you're seeing leaders make with AI in terms of leveraging the AI to make better data insights?
Oh well, I would say with the growth of AI and ML, and again we see the growth of people who are kind of working on these technologies as well, right? Many times we tend to use them as tools and not necessarily look deeper into the outcomes of it. So the first piece of it is, as you kind of use AI and ML, we need to understand that they're only as good as the data that you feed into it, right? So data quality is one of the biggest challenges. We acquire, tons of data, but many times if you're going to use it as is, it would not provide you the right results, because you need to kind of figure out in the quality of data that you're kind of be training your models with, how they kind of pan out, right? The second aspect of it is the completeness of data. Many times, when we are modeling, maybe for a decision intelligence system or an analyst, kind of doing his analysis, we kind of, forego certain aspects of, completeness in the data set. And that hinders, and that kind of, kind of underplays your model and impacts your decision making. I think that the final piece of it would be more around, a robust feedback and tuning mechanism. A model is never one and done. We need to realize that it's a continuous process, and as I kind of spoke about the world being changing, right? So does the model that has to change. So I think having a continuous feedback mechanism and having a mechanism to tune your model and behavior, would probably be forefront when you look at these things. And many times these get overseen, right, in a sense of either trying to do something really fast, or not necessarily realizing the importance of these pieces.
Well, this has been great talking with you. Anything else you want to share in terms of decision intelligence or decision making that we haven't had a chance to cover yet?
I would say, in a more generic terms, because AI and ML, are one of the, as I said, it's the motor powering decision intelligence today, right? And we talked about completeness as one of the, challenges that we have seen. But I would certainly say two more pieces that I would want to add out there, that we have seen as tech systems when we are helping our customers, is the bias aspect of it. We are dealing with data being created by human beings, and inherently that data has bias in it. So being able to identify and eliminate bias from your data set before you kind of use those models for your decision intelligence system, I would say, would be something which is very key. And the second aspect of it is explainability of your model, essentially being able to look at how it's impacting, and why is it making a decision that it is making today, right? And not having that as a black box, whether it be for compliance reasons or whether it be for your own internal reasons. I would say these two pieces, I would say, are pretty crucial to acknowledge and remember when you kind of start modeling behaviors and taking decisions based on them. And from our past experiences, we have seen really big negative impacts of not taking these into account when you kind of model your decisions.
Well, again, I'd like to thank Ramesh Vishwanathan from TEKsystems for joining the show. Learn more about TEKsystems and their perspective at TEKsystems.com. I'm Greg Kilstrom. Thanks for listening to the Agile Brand. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kilstrom podcast, brought to you by TEKsystems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.theagilebrand.show. To get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, visit my website at gregkilstrom.com. Until next week, stay agile.